Hare Krishna, so welcome everyone to our Srimad Bhagavatam class. Thank you for joining in. We'll begin with our prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Shakanvitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate तप्त कांचना गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी निति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna, so welcome everyone. Today we are starting the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So first canto forms the prelude of the Bhagavatam. So as we know, first and second canto, they form the two lotus feet of the Lord. Pado yadiyo prathama dutiyo. So the lotus feet, they are compared to first and second canto. And the third and fourth cantos, they are compared to the thighs of the Lord. So third is compared to the calf and fourth is compared to the thighs. So in this third canto, so many topics, they come up. So many characters are described in this third canto. Shukadeva Goswami, through conversation of Maitreya and Vidura, describes various topics of creation, primary creation, secondary creation, about family life, about embryology, Ashtanga Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, everything, all the topics are described here. And these topics are interwoven with the discussions of the various personalities who will come in this canto. Vidur, Maitreya, Brahmaji, Narada, the story of four Kumaras, Jai Vijay, will all come in this chapter, in this canto. And then famous Kardam and Devahuti pastimes, that everything will come in this chapter, in this canto. So this conversation of Vidur and Maitreya goes on for third and fourth cantos, two cantos. So in this conversation, this canto starts with Vidur and Uddhava Samvad, and it goes on for 4 chapters. Then after that, there are 8 chapters which describe creation, primary creation and secondary creation, Sarga and Visarga. Then after that, there are 7 chapters which describe the pastimes of Lord Varaha. Two incarnations of Varaha are described, Shweta Varaha and Neela Varaha. So Shweta Varaha appears in the first Manvantara, Swayambhuva Manvantara. Now the 7th Manvantara is going on. So the first avatar came in the first Manvantara and the second avatar came in the 6th Manvantara, which is known as Chakshusha. So all that will be described in these chapters, and then the 4 chapters describe about Kapila Dev, and then remaining chapters describe the teachings of Kapila Dev. So it is one of the biggest cantos of Bhagavatam, consisting of 33 chapters. So this is how the whole canto is divided. So there's a link between the second and third canto. So at the end of the second canto, if you remember, Shukadeva Goswami, he was about to explain Padma Kalpa. He had described all the primary creation, secondary creation, 10 topics of Bhagavatam, and then he was about to describe the Padma Kalpa, means the first day of Brahmaji, the further creation pastimes. So Parikshit Maharaj, he was little, not so much inclined to hearing all the technical details more. So he asked Shukadeva Goswami, please tell me what happened when Vidura he left the palace. So what had happened was Shaunak Adi Rishis they asked Sut Goswami the same question. Please tell us about that pastime. We are a little not so bored, but enough of these creation pastimes. We want to hear some technique, some more rasic pastimes. The pastimes of the devotees of the Lord. So please tell us that. So Sut Goswami says, "Are Parikshit Maharaj also asked the same question to Shukdev Goswami." So then he started describing the conversation which happened between Vidura and Maitreya. So in this chapter, Shukdev Goswami gives the introduction and which gives rise to the conversation of Maitreya and Vidura Samvad. So Shukdev Goswami says, Vidurji, he renounced his home and he left for the forest, and there he met Maitreya Muni. And there he asked so many questions which you have inquired. So if you remember in the 8th chapter of the 2nd canto, Parikshit Maharaj had asked many questions, 22 questions. So Shukdev Goswami is answering all these questions. The entire Bhagavatam is the answer to those 22 questions of Parikshit Maharaj. And he said, Krishna, he considered the house of Pandavas, as his own. But Vidura, he left. He left that house. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, why Vidura left his house, which was considered a place of pilgrimage, right? Because when Krishna came to Hastinapur, he didn't go to the place of Duryodhan. He went to Vidurji's place, although he didn't invite him. Vidura didn't invite Krishna, but out of love, he went to his devotee's place and he ate there.
This was after the war
or before the war? Before the war.
When he left the
before he went for Shantidut as a Shantidut. That time he also, before that also he went to Hastinapur and he met Vidura and he went to meet various other relatives in Hastinapur.
This incident.
Achha, this one means discussion between Vidura and Maitreya. This happened after Kurukshetra war. Yeah. So it will come, so it happened after Kurukshetra war. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes that actually Vidura should not have given up his house because it was a place of pilgrimage, because Krishna had come there. Krishna, when he went to Hastinapur, Duryodhana arranged a huge feast for Krishna, thinking that, kila pila ke, he'll get some favor. But Krishna said, look, a person eats in two conditions: if he's hungry or if somebody feeds with love. Neither I am hungry and nor you have love for me, so I'll not eat. So he went to the place of Vidura. So that's what Chakravarti Thakur is telling you. Oh, Viduraji, Krishna came at his place. It was a pilgrimage place. So why he left? So what was the reason? So that is the question which comes in the mind of Parikshit Maharaj. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes that Krishna rejected Duryodhan's house and entered Vidur's house, even though not invited, since he accepted it as his own house. So Vidura, although he gave up his family, he gave up his house, but he didn't give up the service. He didn't give up devotional service. So problems will come in the life of devotees, but we should not give up the service. So spiritual life is a dynamic process. Things will go on changing in life. Everything will go topsy-turvy. As Gauranga says, everything, when things are changing, we should catch hold of those things which don't change. What is that? That is chanting and Bhagavatam. Everything else will change, but these two things will never change. So we have to catch hold of the fundamental, pillars of Krishna consciousness. So that's how Vidurji, he became more attached to Krishna. So devotee is attached to Krishna, is not attached to externals. Yes, bro. So devotee is not attached to a particular place. Vidura he was not thinking, "Arey, I am not there in palace. How will I render bhakti?" Devotee is attached to performing bhakti, not to a particular place. He is not attached to a situation. He is attached to doing devotional service. So therefore, Vidura, he left everything and he went to the holy place of pilgrimage. And there he associated with so many of the saintly people, learned from him. So Shukdev Goswami, he continues. So when Shukdev Goswami said that, oh, Vidura left home, which was a place of pilgrimage, then Parikshit Maharaj, he asked a question. What was the discussion which happened between Vidura and Maitreya? Because you said, Vidura met Maitreya and there was a discussion. When did this happen? Where did this happen? So in every canto, Parikshit Maharaj is so very inquisitive, He is eager to hear. He is giving indication, please tell us that. He is not like, Khatam ho gaya. Thank you very much. So he is always encouraging the speaker of Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam speakers, they need to be encouraged, so that, they can continue speaking. And that is the parampara. So that's how Parikshit Maharaj keeps encouraging the Shukdev Goswami. One time, Srila Prabhupada was in Mayapur and he was giving a class, and after the class he asked, any questions? And no devotee asked any question. So because everybody was tired after Gaur Purnima, it was Gaur Purnima festival. So then Prabhupada said, oh, you should ask questions. So one devotee raised his hand. He said, Prabhupada, this is given in such and such thing is given in Bhagavatam. Is this true? Prabhupada said, you are quoting from Bhagavatam and you are asking, is this true? What type of nonsense question is this? And then he gave a whole class to that devotee. Whenever you ask questions, you should ask relevant questions and sensible questions. As Prabhupada tells in Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, 34th verse, Tadvidhi Pranipatana, in that he writes, blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. You should not ask absurd questions. Sensible questions you should ask. So the questions are very, very important. And Srila Prabhupada writes that Parikshit Maharaj was very anxious to understand, because the entire Bhagavatam is because Parikshit Maharaj is asking questions. Otherwise, Bhagavatam would have ended, just in first canto. After second canto, first 3 chapters, Shukdev Goswami gave the answers to Parikshit Maharaj's questions. But Parikshit Maharaj wanted to know more. So then he says, why I want to know the conversation which happened between Vidura and Maitreya? Because there must be wonderful discussion which must have happened there. So please tell us about that discussion, because whenever two great people meet, they don't discuss, any nonsense thing or things which are of substandard. They discuss very high quality topics which are beneficial for everyone. So he speaks this verse, very important and very beautiful verse. Nahi alparthodayastasya vidurasya malatmanaha tasmin variyasi prashnaha sadhu vadopabrimhitaha nahi alparthodayastasya. The questions of, Prabhupada writes, His Grace Maitreya Rishi, must have been very purposeful. Alpa artha, it must have been very purposeful, not very low meaning, no. Because Vidura was Amalaatmana, he was a pure devotee and he was a great saint. Tasmin variyasi prashna, so the questions must have been on the highest level. And sadhu vadopabramhita, and it must be approved by highest authorities. So Prabhupada writes that questions and answers among different class of men have different values. When two people from stock market or business market meet, what will they ask? Aaj kaun sa Bhagavatam mein discuss hua hai? No. So they'll ask about stock market. So Prabhupada writes, questions and answers by different class of men can be guessed by the caliber of persons concerned. So when two people who are very high standard devotees, when they'll meet, they'll discuss something very high standard devotional topics. So therefore, when these topics are discussed, 3 people are benefited: the person who is asking questions and who is answering, and third, who are listening. So therefore, when Arjuna asked Krishna In the battlefield of Kurukshetra, it was for the welfare of entire society. When Parikshit Maharaj, when all the sages of Naimisharanya, they ask Sut Goswami says the same thing. Varyaneshate prashna krito loka hitam ripa. Varyaneshate. Oh, such a beautiful question you have asked. Krito loka hitam. It is for the welfare of entire human society. So that is how the questions should be. So Prabhupada writes, conversation of great souls are always for the welfare of humanity. So therefore, Sud Goswami, he continues that when Parikshit Maharaj asked question to Shukdev Goswami was highly experienced and therefore he was pleased. If a person who is speaking is not experienced and the audience are asking questions, he will have a headache. Itna question kyun puch raha hai? But if he is experienced and he is also interested in speaking, he will be pleased. So therefore, Shukdev Goswami, he was a highly experienced preacher. So he was pleased and said, please hear the topics attentively. And then he continued. So he described what were the circumstances which led to Vidura leaving Hastinapur. So Shukdev Goswami says, Dhritarashtra, he was blinded by the desire of his sinful son Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra, he wanted to usurp the kingdom of his brothers and he tried so many different ways. He tried to burn his brothers in the house of lac, and Prabhupada writes, Dhritarashtra was blind from birth, but in his blindness in committing impious activities to support his dishonest son, it was a greater blindness. So physical blindness is not a problem, but if somebody is spiritually blind, then there is no hope for that person. So therefore it is described as vinashta drishtihi, because physical blindness cannot hinder the progress of a soul. We have many great devotees who are blind. We have one devotee who comes here and he is blind, but he is very attentive in listening and asks so many questions. One time, he was standing in front of the deities, and a long time was standing. So somebody asked, Prabhuji, आप यहाँ पे खड़े हैं, मतलब क्या प्रार्थना कर रहे हैं? Because you are not able to see the Lord. So he said, no, मैं यहाँ पे खड़ा हूँगा तो भगवान मेरे को देखेंगे तो सही. So that's how physical blindness cannot hinder our progress. But if we are spiritually blind, then it is detrimental to progressive path of human life. And on top of that, this Dhritarashtra, he did not forbid his son when he was doing all these mischievous activities. When he, told Dushashan, you go and get Draupadi. Dhritarashtra was there, he didn't stop him. So therefore, actually, Akrura, he went to meet Dhritarashtra. Krishna sent Akrura that you go and you find out the situation of Hastinapur. So he went and met Dhritarashtra. He was giving good counsel, because some people say, oh, Dhritarashtra, he didn't get good counsel. But many people gave him good counsel. Even Akrura came and he spoke such nice words. But Dhritarashtra said, your words, they are very wonderful, but just like lightning doesn't stay in the cloud, your words are not staying in my heart. Tadit saudamini yatha. So that's how all the good instructions and guidance was going in vain. So Shukdev Goswami says that when Draupadi, she was crying, her tears were washing off the kumkum which was there on her breast. So Chakravarti Thakur says, what is the reason of this? What does it indicate? That in due course of time, war will happen and all the wives of the enemies, they will also cry similarly. So that's how, it is happening. And Shukdev Goswami is telling that, oh, Vidura, he was counseling Dhritarashtra, but he was not listening. Dhritarashtra and party cheated Yudhishthir Maharaj in gambling. And they tried so many ways to usurp the kingdom. And when they came back, Pandavas were sent for Vanvas. They came back and they refused to even be given 5 villages. So that is what was remembered by Vidura. And then he says that, oh Krishna, when he went to the assembly of Duryodhan wanted to arrest him. And then Krishna, he showed his Virata Rupa. So all these things, Shukdev Goswami is telling to Parikshit Maharaj. This is the background of why Vidura left Hastinapur. So as all these things are happening, Vidura is seeing all this and he's regularly going to Dhritarashtra and giving good guidance. And he's saying that, this Dhritarashtra, all his pious credits were lost. He did not even understand, and even Duryodhan could not understand that Krishna has become the messenger. He has become everything for Pandavas. Saratya parishad sevana sakhya dautya veera sananugamana stavana pranaman snigdeshu pandushu jagat pranatim cha vishnu bhaktim karoti nipatis sharanara vinde. So Krishna was becoming everything for Pandavas, their messenger, their protector, their chariot driver. But still Duryodhan could not understand. And that's how he was still opposing. So therefore, the word used is Shata Punya Leshaha. Duryodhan, he had lost all his piety. Therefore, he could not hear. So therefore, to practice devotional service, we should live life free of sinful activity. That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Yesham tu antagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mam dridhavrata. Anybody who performs sinful activities, they cannot practice bhakti with steadiness and determination. So therefore, this Duryodhan, he could not hear the word of Krishna because his life was full of sinful activity. And then he describes that when Vidura, he went to Dhritarashtra and he would regularly go and give good counsel to Dhritarashtra. Although many times he would just hear, he would never follow the words of Vidura. Although Vidura was very, very intelligent and his words, they are approved by ministers also, great people. That's why it is called as Vidura Niti. The words of Vidura. So Vidura was a mantri. Mantri means one who gives mantra, one who gives nice suggestion. And this mantra should be accepted with heart. But Dhritarashtra, he did not accept all these suggestions of Vidura. So therefore, good advice is not sufficient. We should have good attitude also to follow that advice. We should have that open-mindedness so that we can accept the good advice which is given to us. Otherwise, if somebody gives good advice and we are thinking, I know better, so then we'll not be able to follow that advice. So therefore, Vidura, when he was giving good advice to Dhritarashtra, he was trying so many ways to convince Dhritarashtra that you please tell your son to stop doing all these nefarious activities. And then he gives so many reasons. He says they have Bhima. And he has taken a vow to kill all the 100 Kauravas. And there is a verse in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna is telling, Duryodhan is telling, Aparayaptam tadasmakam balam bhishma abhirakshitam parayaptam tudame tesham balam bhima abhirakshitam. 10th verse, first chapter. So there he says, Prabhupada writes that Duryodhan is telling our strength is immeasurable because it is protected by Bhishma, and Pandava's strength is very limited because they are protected by Bhima. Chakravarti Thakur says, no, it is the other way around. He's saying that our strength is limited, aparyapta. Another meaning is paryapta nahi hai. Why? Because Bhishma, who is commander-in-chief, he has taken a vow, I'll kill everybody, I'll not kill 5 Pandavas. Then what is the use? And Bhima, he had taken a vow, I'll kill all the 100 Kauravas. So that's how Vidura is reminding Dhritarashtra that, Bhima is really angry and he has taken a vow to kill all your sons. And Pandavas, they are very angry. You have done so much of the injustice to them, and although Yudhishthir Maharaj is Ajata Shatru, he has no enemies, but still you have done so much harm. And Bhima is hissing like a snake, ready to bite and, burn all of you. And on top of that, they have Krishna. Who is Krishna? So he speaks this verse. Parthastu devo bhagavan mukundo
Parthastu devo Bhagavan Mukundo
grihitavan sakshiti deva devaha
Vihitavan Shakshiti Deva Deva
aste swapuryam yadudeva devo
Aste Swapuriyam Yadudeva Devo
vinirjita sheshanrdeva devaha.
Vinijita Shresha Deva Deva.
So he says, they have Bhagavan Mukundo, they have Supreme Lord Krishna on their side. Who is that? He is supported by Brahmanas, Deva Devaha. He is supported by Brahmanas, he is supported by Devatas. And he has accepted all the Pandavas as himself. And he is staying in his home. He is staying in, with Pandavas always. He's staying always in the house of Pandavas. And even though he goes and stays at his place in Dwarka, but still he is always thinking of Pandavas. And who are the relatives of Krishna? They are not ordinary people, they are Yadus. And Yadus are most powerful, they have defeated everyone, and he is the best of the Yadus. So therefore, please be careful. So he says Parthams. Parthams means they are very intimately connected. It is not that some distant relative, no, they are intimately connected. So Krishna is worshipped by Brahmanas, he is worshipped by Devatas, he is worshipped by all the Yadavas. So please be careful. So he gives 5 reasons that they have Krishna. He is Supreme Lord. Brahmanas and Devatas are on his side. He has defeated unlimited kings in the past also. He has defeated Jarasandha 17 times. When he was a small child, he has killed so many of the demons just like child's play. Please be careful. So Dhritarashtra, he may argue, but my son will oppose. If I speak something, my son will oppose. So then he says, look, your son, Duryodhan, who is he? He is fault personified. And he says, he is the result of your sins which you have committed in past 10 million lives. He is the personification of that sin. So he's giving all the bad words to Dhritarashtra also and Duryodhana also. So please get rid of your son immediately. If you want to protect your family, just get rid of the son. Saesha dosha purushas splidaste grihan pravishto yamapatyamatya Ushnashi Krishna Vimukho Gata Shri Tajat Shaivam Kulakaushalaya. So you are maintaining sin personified. Saesh dosha, fault personified you are maintaining. And this personality, he is envious of Supreme Lord. Purusha Dvid. Dvid means envious. So he is envious of Supreme Lord. What good he will do to you? The apatyamatya, he says, Grihan pravishtoyam, and this sin personified has entered your home and he has become your son. He is apatyamatya. You are thinking that he is your auspicious son. He is apatyamatya. He is himself doomed and he will destroy the entire family. Ushnashit, why? Because he is a non-devotee. He is envious of Krishna. Vimukho Gata Shri, he is devoid of all the auspicious qualities. So Chakravarti Thakur says, he has externally entered your house and he has internally entered your mind and intelligence. So therefore he has ruined your everything. You are thinking he is your son and you are encouraging him, he is not your son. And then, so Dhritarashtra may say, okay, what's the solution then? You are telling that, okay, all this is, my son is so sinful. Tajat tasham, give him up immediately. He is inauspicious. If you want to, do welfare for your family, kul kaushalaya. For the welfare of your family, give up this son of yours. So Dhritarashtra may say, if I reject my son, it will be a black spot, He said, no, it will be good. Kul kaushalaya. It will be good for your family. Please give him up immediately. So therefore, this is not just talking about, a son. This is a position of a person who is in the leadership. A leadership person should not be a person who is in the leadership. He should not be attached to just personal ambitions, personal ways, personal opinions, my people. He should see the welfare of people in general. So that's how we have to understand. So Prabhupada writes in the purport that if you have to give up one person to protect the family, you should do it. That is actually a subhashit. So त्यजेद एकम कुलस्यार्थे ग्रामस्यार्थे कुलम त्यजेत ग्रामम जनपदस्यार्थे हि आत्मार्थे पृथ्वीम त्यजेत. So this verse says त्यजेद एकम कुलस्यार्थे, to protect the family we can give up one person. To protect the society, one family can be sacrificed. To protect the nation, one society, one small village can be sacrificed. And to protect the self, we should be able to give up this entire material world. So that's how he's telling that please don't be attached to your son. So this is a story of how a person can be so stubborn because of his false ego. He's not thinking my family will be destroyed. Sometimes even as practicing devotees, when we are doing some services, we become attached to our ideas. I have given ideas, you have to follow it. Otherwise, I'll not serve. I'm going. So that's how when we are in association of devotees, we have to be flexible. Otherwise, it is very difficult to serve when it becomes a question of ego. So therefore, Prabhupada writes, a good son is called apatya. Apatya means he does not allow the father to fall down. The fathers who are staying in, Pitri Loka, they will not fall down because the son offers Pindadan. So Pinda is offered to whom? To Lord Vishnu. So he is saying, he is himself envious of Lord Vishnu. What Pind he will offer? So he will be destroyed. So therefore, give him up immediately. Prabhupada writes, if the son is not a devotee, he is like a blind eye, which keeps giving trouble. So Duryodhana was like a blind eye, which was a source of trouble for entire family. And interesting thing is, when Vidura is speaking all this, Duryodhana is right there. He is hearing, he is listening all this. What Vidura is telling about me. It is not that, Duryodhana is not there and he is speaking all that. So Vidura, he was burning with anger. He was trembling because of anger. His eyes became red, his lips started trembling, and he, Shukdev Goswami, he uses the word Suyodhana. Actually, his name was Suyodhana earlier. But because of his, bad activities, he became Duryodhana. So Dushashan was earlier Susashan. But because of his bad activities, he became Dusashan. So Shukdev Goswami is giving a benefit of doubt to Duryodhana, saying, no, he was good, but because of association with Shakuni and Dushashan, he got corrupted. So that's how he is giving some, he's giving some, benefit of doubt to Duryodhana. So Duryodhana, he is telling, who has asked this son of kept mistress to come here? He's speaking about his uncle, who has served him, served the society, served the palace whole life. And he's saying that he is just a spy, always acting in the interest of the enemy. So just toss him out of the palace immediately. And only reward for his lifetime of services we are giving him, we are leaving him with his breath. That is the retirement benefit. So that's how Duryodhana, he is really strongly speaking. So Chakravarti Thakur writes that Duryodhana says, who has called him in this assembly? He's not supposed to be here. He's the son of a kept mistress, Dasi Putra, because Vidura was born from a Dasi. Vyasdev, when he was called, a Dasi came and, we know the story. So therefore, Duryodhana says, this Vidura should be caned so much that he should become breathless. That's what Chakravarti Thakur says. This is another meaning of what he's telling. And Prabhupada, he speaks about this, Vidura, he was a Dasi Putra, but he was a very, very learned personality. And he knew very well, Duryodhana knew very well that Dhritarashtra, this Vidura is a real well-wisher, but still he could not tolerate when he was insulted. And now, very, very important and very, very wonderful response of Vidura. When he hears this, that okay, you go out of the palace. Only reward is we are leaving you with your breath. So the glorious response of Vidura is, mentioned in this Bhagavatam. Saitam atyul banakarna banai.
Saitamatyul Banakarnabhane.
Ratu puro marma sutaditopi.
Ratu Purvarnasasatyo.
Swayam dhanurdvari nidhaya mayam.
Swayam Maya.
Gata vyatho yad urumana yanaha. So it was not that Vidura was not hurt by those words. Saitam ati ulban. These words, they entered the heart just like the burning hot arrows. Ati ulban karna banir. They entered not the heart through the chest. They entered through ears. Karna banir. Bhratu pura. Marmasu taditopi. All the sensitive points. Marma. Marma chikitsa. Marma means sensitive points. So Vidura was really pained by the words of Duryodhana. So what he did? Swayam dhanurdvari nidhaya maya. So he placed his bow on the door, as you can see in this picture, and he quit his brother's palace. But what was his internal meditation? That is important. Gatavyatho, he was not sorry. He was not thinking, I did a whole lifetime of service and this is the reward which he is giving me. This is what Krishna is doing with me. Gatavyathoyad urumanayana. He considered this as an act of external energy. So Chakravarti Thakur analyzes this very nicely. He says, Vidura, he actually is telling, oh Duryodhana, you have blessed me. You have blessed me by allowing me to go out, because whole life I was thinking when I'll go for yatra. Because that was the purpose Yamraj came to this planet. He was cursed by Mandukya Muni that you go and take birth as a Shudra, son of a maid servant. So Yamraj was thinking that overtime chal raha tha, thoda break mil gaya, But even as a Vidura, he was not getting time to go to a pilgrimage. So he is telling, okay, now Duryodhana, you have blessed me. You have driven me out of this palace. Now I'll go to all the places of pilgrimage. And therefore, I have no pain. What pain I can suffer? I'll not be in your association. That is the greatest happiness. So I'm not painful. I'm not troubled by this. And therefore he says, why should I, allow you to trouble me more? I have already given up everything. So what is the use of this bow? Because you will be thinking after you leave from here, you may go to Pandava's place. Fight from their side. No, don't worry. Just rest, be assured, I'll not go to the Pandava side also. I am going to pilgrimage. So therefore, I will not fight for them also. And then he says, this is Urumanayana. These are the acts of Yogamaya. So that's how a devotee should see. Whenever problem happens in the life of devotees, we should see how Yogamaya is acting in our life. When problems happen in the lives of non-devotees, Mahamaya acts on them. That's what is described. Duryodhana is under the influence of Mahamaya and Vidura is under the influence of Yogamaya. So therefore, another meaning, Chakravarti Thakur says, Vidura is thinking, oh, just see the Maya of Krishna. This Duryodhana, he is driving me out of his palace. He doesn't know that if somebody offends the devotee of the Lord, he will be destroyed. Ayu Shriyo Yasho Dharmam Loka Nashisha Evacha Hanti Shreyamsi Sarvani Pumso Mahad Atikrama. It comes in the 10th canto. Whenever a person offends great personalities, what all things go down? Life duration, fame, religious activities, Ayu Shriyo Yasha, all the wealth goes down. So everything is destroyed when a great personality is offended. So therefore, Vidura is showing how to give a devotional response to a problem. So he could have thought, oh, why this is happening to me? He may have analyzed in a different way. But just like Narad Muni, when his only mother died, what was he thinking? Tada tadaham ishasya bhaktanam sham abhipsitaha anugraham manyamana pratishtam dishamuttara. Anugraha. He considered this as mercy and blessings. That is called as devotional response. So Prabhupada writes, Vidura understood that this is act of external energy on Duryodhan and internal energy is acting on me and helping me so that I can get out of this place. So therefore, great people, they convert the causes of distress into opportunities to come close to the Lord. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he writes, he was speaking and somebody forwarded me a nice message. So he was telling that Maharaj said, whenever you go through problems in your life, that is the time we can make maximum advancement in Krishna consciousness. Although it is very difficult, but that's how we have to be. That's how we have to train ourselves. Because all of us have this experience. When problem comes, we are so very, intense in our japa, in our hearing. So we have to look for the hand of the Lord in all the situations. So that's how this verse tells how we should deal with heartbreaks. When some relatives, they are speaking something against us. Even devotees are not favorable. Even, it happens. Sometimes devotees speak wrongly. How we should handle the situation. Vidura, one moment he was prime minister, other moment he is thrown out. So that's what happened in the life of Yamraj. So who are we? So therefore, all our upadhis can be destroyed in a moment. In a moment, we can be completely destroyed. So Vidura, he was not attached to anything, therefore he was happy. He didn't get disturbed. Gata vyatha, he was not disturbed. So of course, when somebody speaks harsh words, it is painful. But how to respond? As it is said, life is, I forgot the statement. Life is only 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond to the problems. So that's how Bhagavatam is teaching. So Marmasu Taditopi, he was disturbed, but he didn't give up his devotional activities. He didn't blame Krishna. So therefore, entire Bhagavatam is teaching us this situation. How to change the situations, problems, to increase our devotional consciousness. One time devotees were doing a Nagar Sankirtan and the mayor of the place was not favorable. He arrested them and put them in jail. So they were thinking Sunday, abhi kya kare, Sunday Bhagavatam time hai. So they thought, okay, somebody will give class. So one devotee started giving class, others were hearing. Then they did some katha and abhi feast hai. So mentally they prepared the feast and ate also. So, so other prisoners, they saw these guys are doing something interesting. So they also joined Kirtan. And when the jailer, he entered the prison, everybody was telling Hari Bol, so he was a little confused and he thought these people are more dangerous inside. So he released them. So that's how, we have to change every situation to come close to Krishna. So then after this, Vidura, he left for the places of pilgrimage. So another interesting thing which is described, that Vidura is such a great personality. He is a pure devotee of the Lord. But, it is described that he is very pious. He is born in the family of Pandavas, Kuru dynasty. That means he is very pious, very elevated. But why he went to the places of pilgrimage? Because he could have directly gone to meet Krishna. He could have stayed with Krishna. Why he went to the place of pilgrimage? So he was thinking that I have associated with Duryodhan. I have become contaminated. So let me go and purify myself and then I will come and take association, be in association of Krishna. So that's, and Prabhupada in the purport he describes that. Just like Vidura, when he went to pilgrimage, he didn't go and take darshan and came back. He went and heard from Maitreya. Most of the people, before coming to Krishna consciousness, our dham yatra was what? Go to pilgrimage, take darshan, and then take bath and come back. Or if you are going to Vrindavan, then that Banke Bihari Mandir ho bagal mein, wo galli khao galli, usme prasad prasad leke hum log will come back. That was our devotional service. But Bhagavatam condemns this mentality. Yasya atma buddhi kunape tridhatuke swadhi kalatradi shubhauma ichyadhi yat tirtha buddhi salilena karehchit janeshu abhikyeshu saiva gokhara. Gokhara, a person who has the mentality of cow and ass. He worships the place of birth. He goes to the place of pilgrimage and takes bath and come back. He does not hear from great souls. But Vidura, he went to the pilgrimage and he heard from all the great personalities. And Prabhupada in the purport, he describes in detail about, in all the holy places, you will find archas. Archa means the deity forms of the Lord. All these deity forms have been manifested to show mercy to the devotees. Yad yad dhyata urugaya vibhavayanti tattad vapu pranayase sadanugrahaya. So in whatever form devotee wants to worship Krishna, Krishna appears in that form. So that is the purpose of the appearance of the deities of the Lord. So therefore Vidura, he went and he began to travel to so many places. And how he was conducting himself in the place of pilgrimage. So this verse describes Gamparya tanmedhya vivikta vrittihi Sada plutodha shayano vadhutaha Alakshita swaira vadhuta vesho Vratani chere haritoshanani. So while traversing on the earth, Gam Paryatan, Vivikta Vritti, he was pure in his actions. Although he had no bindings, no bondage. He was independent. Always he was sanctified. Wherever he would go, he would take bath. It is said that his hairs were always wet because he would keep taking bath in so many of the kunda and the rivers. And he would not care, oh, bed mil raha hai. He would lie down anywhere, had a dress of mendicant. So Prabhupada in the purport, he describes very beautiful, just 4-line purport Prabhupada writes. And he describes what should be the mood of a pilgrim. When we go to a pilgrimage place, what should be our mood? The first and foremost duty of the pilgrim is to satisfy the Supreme Lord. Pilgrim should not be worried about pleasing society, what others will say, what my family members, what my relatives will tell. We are going to please the Supreme Lord. There is no need to depend on social formalities. One should remain always absorbed in the function of pleasing the Lord. That is the only thing we have to do in the holy place, to be absorbed in the remembrance of the Lord. And that is the process of pilgrim's journey. So then after traveling through all the holy places, he reached Prabhas Kshetra, the place where the fight between all the Yadus happened, the Maushala Leela. So Vidura, he reached after this Maushala Leela. After Krishna had departed from this world, he reached at Prabhas Kshetra. And that time Yudhishthir Maharaj was ruling the earth. And he got to know the result of the war. He understood. He got to know the result of Kurukshetra war also and the war of Yadus also. And he came to know that entire Yadu dynasty and entire Kuru dynasty, they all were destroyed, just like the bamboo fire. And then he felt very bad, and then he proceeded towards the west, and he reached Yamuna. He reached the place where Yamuna was flowing. And Prabhupada writes, Shukdev Goswami describes, in between he went to so many places on the bank of Yamuna, Saraswati, and then ultimately he reached the place where Uddhava was residing. And there he met Uddhava. So Uddhava, he is described as Bhagavatam Dadarsha. He is a great devotee of the Lord. Prabhupada writes a very interesting thing. He says, there are still many great devotees of the Lord who are lingering in Vrindavan. And he writes a beautiful statement there. He says, it is not that such devotees meet Krishna face to face. But a devotee is eagerly searching after Krishna is as good as seeing him personally. So it was there in the time of Krishna also. After Krishna left, many great devotees, they were wandering like beggars. We may have seen, right? Going to Vrindavan and all the interiors of Vrindavan, you will see many of the mendicants. Yadanucharita Leela Karna Piyusha Viprut Sakrit Adana Vidhuta Dvandva Dharma Vinashta Sapadi Griha Kutumbam Dina Mutsrajya Dina Bahava Iha Vihanga Bhikshucharyam Charanti. So the gopis are telling, whoever hears the pastimes of Krishna, Anucharita Leela Karna Piyush, you know what happens to them? They give up their wretched families and they themselves become wretched. Dina Mutsrajya Dina. They become like birds going from one branch to another, eating the fruits of Krishna Katha. Bahava iha vihanga bhikshu charyam charanti. They are roaming like beggars. So Prabhupada writes, it is not that they see Krishna, but just the act of searching for Krishna is as good as seeing him. Just like Shad Goswamis, He Radhe Vrajadevike Chalalite He Nanda Suno Kuta. So Radha Govind Maharaj says, our mission always remains unaccomplished. None of the acharyas, they tell, I found Krishna. They always say, we have not found yet. Even Shad Goswamis are telling the same. Even Mahaprabhu tells the same. So there Prabhupada writes, how this is so cannot be explained. But it is factually realized by those who are pure devotees of the Lord. Prabhupada is experiencing himself. One time Prabhupada was there in one place and one of his disciples, I think Bhagavat Prabhu, he entered, he was a personal servant of Prabhupada. So after noon, Prabhupada would take 1 hour of nap and then, he would take something. So then after the nap, this devotee entered and he found that Prabhupada is, looking out of the window and he's crying. So he was a little, surprised and he thought maybe Prabhupada is having some intimate, dealing with Krishna. So he came out and he told Yamuna Mataji. So he said, oh, Prabhupada is crying. He said, yes, maybe Prabhupada had, she said, Prabhupada is experiencing Krishna. You go after some time. So after 15-20 minutes, he again entered. And again, still Prabhupada was crying. So he was about to leave again. Prabhupada noticed him. He said, please wait. Why are you going? So he said, no, Prabhupada, I didn't want to disturb you. So then he asked, Prabhupada, why are you crying? So Prabhupada said, by the mercy of Guru Maharaj, I can see Krishna there in the garden and he's playing flute. That's why I'm crying. So this devotee, hearing this, he started crying. So Prabhupada said, why are you crying? So he said, I am so fortunate, Prabhupada, that I am in such association of a pure devotee who is experiencing Krishna, seeing Krishna personally. That's how when Prabhupada writes all these things, these are his devotional ecstasies. Prabhupada writes, he tells, my purports are my devotional ecstasies. How this is so cannot be explained, but it is factually realized by those who are pure devotees. Philosophically, we can understand Krishna and Krishna's name, they are non-different. But the more we realize Krishna, it will become more tangible. And then he describes the qualities of Uddhava. Who is this Uddhava? Savasudeva Nucharam Prashantam Brihaspate Praktanayam Pratitam Alingya Gadham Pranayena Bhadram Swanam Aprichat Bhagavat Prajanam. Savasudeva Anuchara. He was the constant companion of Krishna. He would wear clothing of Krishna, all Maha of Krishna only. He would eat the remnants of Krishna. He would wear the dress which was left by Krishna. Toyopabhukta srag gandha vasa lankara charchitai. Tava maya jayemihi. He says, he's telling to Krishna, oh my Lord, just by wearing the Maha of you, by taking your remnants, I will cross this ocean of material existence. So Vasudeva Anuchara. Prashantam, he was sober, gentle. He was Brihaspati Prakatanaya. He was a disciple of Brihaspati. He was not an ordinary person. He had learned from Brihaspati everything. So Shukdev Goswami tells in the 10th canto also, Vrishninam pravaro mantri Krishnasya daitas sakha Shishyo Brihaspate sakshat uddhavo buddhisattama. Vrishninam pravaro mantri. He was the best of the ministers. Krishnasya daita sakha. Everybody in Dwarka knew that Uddhava is the most dear to Krishna. Shishyo Brihaspate. He is a Shishya, disciple of Brihaspati. And he is most intelligent. So Brihaspati, so this Uddhava, when he saw Krishna, when he saw Vidura, so what happened, it will come in the next verse. It is very interesting. So Vidura, he is seeing Uddhava. He is such a great devotee. He is disciple of Brihaspati, and he embraced Uddhava. But what happened? Uddhava fainted by that time. Just by seeing Vidura, seeing the great devotee of Lord, Uddhava fainted. And then he got up. So then Vidura, he asked. So Prabhupada writes, Vidura, he is like father. Because Krishna and Uddhava, they are cousins, and Vidura is elderly. So Vidura, he embraced Krishna, this Uddhava, and Uddhava wanted to touch the feet of Vidura. That is a general etiquette. But Uddhava, as he was trying to bow down, he fainted. So then Vidura, he lifted him up, and then when he came back to consciousness, Vidura asked him about the family of the Lord. Why he asked about the Lord? Because if Lord is happy, then devotees will be happy. So that's why he asked about Krishna first. And now very interestingly, why Vidura asked about Krishna? Just went to Prabhas Kshetra. He heard Krishna has departed. He heard all the Kurus, they have been killed. But still he is asking. So, Prabhupada writes a very interesting insight to it. That Vidura, although he knew that Krishna has departed, all the Kauravas have died, he heard it. His intelligence could understand, his heart was not ready to accept. That is a great devotee. The same thing comes in the first canto of Bhagavatam. In the 14th chapter. The chapter is entitled Questions by Yudhishthir Maharaj. The chapter is entitled Disappearance of Lord Krishna. But this chapter is full of questions of Yudhishthir only. Yudhishthir is so intelligent that when Vidura, he told. So when Vidura came back, Yudhishthir asked about how is Krishna, how are the relatives of Krishna. Vidura told everything. He didn't tell about the disappearance of Krishna. So Yudhishthir is intelligent enough to understand that Krishna must have departed. When Arjuna came back, he saw the facial features of Arjuna. He is despondent. He understood. But the whole chapter is 40 questions. Asking Arjuna, Ye hua kya? Ye hua kya? What is the problem? Why are you sad? Did you not feed somebody? Did you not give shelter to a women? So many questions. These are not the redundant questions. Bhagavatam has recorded all these questions because these are the feelings of ecstasy of a devotee. How a devotee feels separation from the Lord. So that's all. So therefore, entire chapter is full of questions. So because Yudhishthir, he was not able to accept. Maybe there must be some. Just like if somebody buys a new iPhone, latest iPhone model, he gives to his friend or her friend, and the phone falls down and breaks. So the news, when it is conveyed, so you can't accept it. नहीं टूटा होगा लेकिन गिरा होगा टूटा नहीं होगा. So you want to see yourself. So that's how Yudhishthir Maharaj, that's how Vidura, they knew that Krishna has departed. But the rest of the chapter just inquiries about Krishna and family of Krishna, which is of no use. He knows Krishna has departed. Satsangan mukta dusango hatum notsa te buddha kirtyamanam yasho yasya sakrit akarnyam rochanam tasminyastadhiya partha saheran virahan katham darshan sparsha sanlapa shayana asana bhojanai. The condition of Pandavas, it is described here. Anyone who gets association of devotees of the Lord, they cannot give it up. What to speak of if somebody gets association of the Lord? They were dining with Krishna, they were moving around with Krishna, they were with Krishna always. Darshan, Sparsha, Sanlapa, Shayana, Asana, Bhojana. How can they tolerate this separation? So therefore, Yudhishthira has so many questions, and that's why Vidura is also asking. So first Vidura, he asked about the Supreme Lord, because the Supreme Lord, when he is there, there is prosperity around. He asked about Vasudev and Pradyumna and Kunti Maharani, Ugrasen, Samba. He asks about all the great personalities, about Akrura, Aniruddha, Pradyumna, Samba, everything. And then in the end, he asks about Krishna. He says, he tells that Lord comes to establish dharma. And that is the purpose of Lord's appearance. Otherwise, why Lord comes? So therefore, this is the last verse which he is speaking. He says, I have been to so many holy places. I have taken bath in all the holy rivers. But now, please glorify the Lord. I want to take bath in the most transcendental river of the pastimes of Krishna. Tasya prapanna khilalokapanam avasthitanam anushashane swe arthaya jatasya dushvajasya vartam sakhe kirtaya tirtha kirte. So the Supreme Lord, who is Akhil Lokapana, he protects the entire world. He appeared in the Yadu dynasty and he is glorified. And he makes the holy places as the holy places. Kirtaya tirtha kirte. So please glorify the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. So that's how this chapter ends. So we'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.